the defending champion Hoyas had a 16-game winning streak, the best defense in the land, and Patrick Ewing.
There was no way that anybody in this town thought that that team could win that game.
I knew that they'd have to play a perfect game in order to beat us, and they did.
People love to look at 85 Villanova as the perfect basketball team. They were not. They lost to Georgia, they lost to Boston College, they lost to Georgetown twice, and then they lost to St. John's twice too. They only had 2 major wins, over Boston College and over Syracuse, and they played them again a month later, and they lost both. Just when it possibly couldn't seem to get worse, they lost their last game of the season to division rivals Pitt, 85-62. Charles Smith, who barely averaged 15 points a game that season, scored 18 on Villanova's defense. And if this embarrassment of a game wasn't enough, Villanova drew Pitt again to play 5 days later in round 1 of the Big East tournament. Needless to say, the Wildcats turned it around pretty quickly and beat Pitt 69-61, holding Smith to just 13 points in this game. This high didn't last for very long, and Villanova lost to St. John's for the 3rd time that season in the next round, 89-74. Luckily, their now 19-10 record was enough to give them a berth in the NCAA tournament.
Villanova was ranked 8th entering the tournament, where they were first scheduled to play 9th-seeded Dayton. Through a rough battle, Villanova edged out a win 51-49, backed by 20 points from Ed Pickney, who would go on to be the only member of this Villanova team to make it to the NBA. However, this win came at hardly any enjoyment, as everyone knew what would come next. Villanova's next match would be against the University of Michigan, who was ranked 2nd in the country behind only Georgetown, and was led by 6'11" Ron Tarpley, who averaged 19 points and 10 rebounds per game. In this game, it was the Wildcats' defense that stepped up big, holding Tarpley to just 14 despite his 40 minutes on the floor, the most on either team. Even with this, Villanova barely held on, but Dwayne McClain's game-high 20 points were enough to pull off the upset and send Villanova to the next round. Villanova stepped up big again next, beating Maryland 46-43. Despite their success, the country was still counting Villanova out, as they still hadn't won a game by more than 4 points. The Wildcats quickly shut this talk down and made their statement to the world in a dominant 56-44 win over number 2 seeded UNC, cutting the shot percentage of their star player, Kenny Smith, in half, and lowering his 12.3 points per game to just 4. The Villanova defense stepped up big again in the Final Four, holding number 2 seeded Memphis to only 38% from the field, and holding Keith Lee, who scored over 20 points per game, to only 10, while not a single Memphis player scored more than 11. Just like that, Villanova found its way into the national championship.
Felt like everybody in the world was rooting for us. Maybe it's because we were just a pure underdog, maybe it's because of Rollie, or maybe because there was this percentage of people out there that didn't like Georgetown.
This extra support wasn't enough on its own, but Villanova coach Raleigh Massimino had a couple extra tricks up his sleeve the night before the game.
In the parking lot of the Ramada Inn in Lexington, Kentucky, Rollie put in a different defense between the semifinal game and the championship game. He decided that every time Pat gets the ball in the post, we're going to double team him. So we came weak side because Patrick did not turn and reverse the ball to expose the weak side of the defense.
Villanova's early offensive success came from its ability to break what many considered the best press in the nation.
They had one guy taking it out and then one guy run off the court and then, just moving the defense around, something that we wasn't accustomed to because they didn't do it all year.
That we were here to play, so, you guys better get ready. It's going to be a long night.
The backcourt handled the pressure. Because that was the thing against Georgetown. Could you get the ball up court? Can Gary get it past Michael Jackson?
The bottom line in that game, Michael Jackson couldn't guard me.
Led by Gary McClain's perfect shooting from the floor and the line, the Villanova team shot 79%.
Wide open, good jump, good. Jensen trying a 20-footer, got it.
It's called a zone.
Usually one player gets in it. We had a whole team in it.
Blaine to Pinckney at the foul line. He's into the lane. His shot is good.
We only shot the ball 10 times in the second half. 10 times. And we made 9.
Jensen, long jump. Good. The Cats by 1.
I knew that they'd have to play a perfect game in order to beat us. And they did. So I just figured they made a deal with the devil.
That's it. It's really a pleasure to be the national champions of the nation!
When you look at the greatest upsets, you'll see Villanova and Georgetown. Can't deny the game. They lost, we won. It's a great story.